Welcome back, everyone, to Buying Local. I say welcome back. I don't know if I should say welcome back or welcome to, because it's kind of presumptuous if I say welcome back.
You got
right?
the old and the new, bringing them both together.
Everyone, I'm joined here today by Mike Kurkowski. And if I said your last name wrong, I'm sorry.
You got it right on the nail.
I got it right.
Yeah, nail on the head.
Everyone write this down.
Already off to a good start.
This is a moment in history. I mess up people I've known for years. I mess up their names as soon as I get on the podcast. I say it any other time, no problem. Get on the podcast, screw it right up. So, Mike, I was thinking about this podcast, knowing that you're coming in, and there's a few things for us to talk about. You got a lot of cool stuff going on. But of course, we want to talk about who you are and kind of your background. So I figured we'd start at our beginning.
Sure.
We met, it must have been like 2010?
Around there, yeah.
Right?
Or early 2000, if not 10, 11, or 12.
Somewhere
definitely
around
early on there.
Because I was working at Sailor Training out of Albany,
Mm-hmm.
and you were at Healthplex. We were just talking about this earlier.
Yep.
And I was laughing, actually. You would appreciate this, because I remember you actually had a profound impact on me, whether you know this or not. But
do tell.
Well, so we went through. I had to go through the assessment with you. Mm-hmm. So for those of you listening that don't, is Healthplex still there?
It's still there. It's in Clifton
nice.
Park. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is Steve still on it? Mm-hmm. No kidding.
Yeah. From what I know, yeah, it's been five years or so since I've been around there.
Yeah. So we had brought you guys on as a client to help the trainers and coaches kind of figure out how to like close deals, basically, for people that would come in and do free assessments. So as part of the experience, I had to go through the assessment with you, if you remember this.
Yes, I do.
And I remember as a part of the assessment, I had to hold like a broomstick over my head and do a squat. Mm-hmm. And that was when you introduced me to the idea of thoracic spine mobility, and the fact that mine was complete trash because all of a sudden I'm falling forward, I'm on my toes, I couldn't keep my heels on the ground. And this was like, I want to say, I think I might have been in CrossFit at that point in time. And I was also running 30 to 50 miles a week on top of that. So it was like, I was very active, but no mobility training. I didn't even know what mobility was. I didn't even know that was a thing, right? Like we stretched, like before a workout kind of deal. And
touch your toes. Oh, I'm good. All right, let's go lift heavy shit.
Exactly. My hamstrings are open. I'm good. So I had no idea about mobility until that day. And then from that, like if you look at the next 10 years of my life, it was like a quest for mobility, where all of a sudden I'm getting into Kelly Starrett and reading his books, and I'm going to yoga, and then I got my yoga certification, all these different things of trying to break that mobility bubble that I was in. And it all started with you making me fall on my face with a broom handle over my head. So
I love it.
So
yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I appreciate that.
There was a lot of people I met at that time that had some come to Jesus moments, I guess, with where they were with mobility or strength and stability. It's a great assessment process that we did have that I was fortunate enough to learn. And it really impacted me quite a bit with that as well. Because I had a similar thing. Like that's how I found that type of work in functional movement assessment, and what's really got me into the personal training world, which eventually now to what I do with physical and mental performance, was when I was 14 years old, I had it's called a slipped epiphysis. So my femur slipped out of the growth plate. Oh. And it's genetic thing. Sometimes it's like they don't really know.
Slipped a whaticus?
It's called a slipped epiphysis. Yeah. So it's one of those words you can hear it and then forget about it.
I got it again.
But essentially my femur slipped out of the growth plate. And if I had to go in for emergency surgery, I thought I had a bad groin pull from athletics, and it just wouldn't go away. So finally my parents brought me to an orthopedic, like, can we just take an x-ray or something like that? And, the femur's supposed to slide in nice like here. Yeah. Mine was out. And so I had to go in.
Sounds terrible.
It sucked, yeah. And I had to go in and get a pin inserted in there, and I was off my feet for a year and a half from time. And then what kind of came full circle is I was, an athlete growing up, and then I got back into fitness, wanted to play baseball when I was like 19, 20 years old. But then when I moved back to New York after moving to Boston and then Florida, I was trying to get back in shape, and a good friend of mine was a trainer at this place, Healthplex. And I was just kind of looking to get back in shape. I'm like, hey, can I meet with you? And he put me through that assessment. And I didn't realize.
Did you also fall on your face?
I didn't fall on my face, but I was so asymmetric in my movement because of the pin in my hip. And from just the time of rehabilitation, my one side got so much stronger than the other one. And so when I was doing a squat or I was doing like a single leg stance, I was so strong on one side and so weak or unstable on one side. And what's funny about that is like I was 23 years old.
Yeah.
You're kind of like Superman at that age.
You
can
think.
do anything,
Yeah.
right? And like if you have movement issues or anything like that, you can kind of mask it by just sheer testosterone or just strength at that time. And he started putting me through some corrective exercises to get my body back in balance. And I felt amazing after a few weeks. And I didn't realize I didn't feel amazing until I felt amazing.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought me down the rabbit hole of wanting to learn more about biomechanics and the human body. And then down the line, I was just kind of working at a restaurant, but really just was so passionate about my own physical fitness and my health. And this trainer that I worked with eventually became the manager of that club and was kind of recruiting people. It's like, hey, do you ever think about getting into personal training? I think you might be good at it. And I was like, well, how does it work? Like, what is this actually about? And I got a certification and got hired at that place, was working the front desk, then built a book of business and fell in love with working with people in fitness. And then I ended up managing that club for 10 years. And then after that, had a studio with a former partner. He built it in Saratoga called Evolution. I was there with him for a couple years.
That's when we reunited, so
That's
to
when
speak,
we
right?
reconnected.
Yeah,
Our mutual friend, Lindsay Cruz, who is one of the greatest people that I've ever met in my life. We had a great team that we built a studio specifically around the kettlebell, hard style kettlebell training, what we learned from Strong First, which is principles that I still work with now in my own coaching practice. And then till now kind of shifted from there. But yeah, it all kind of came back to that one assessment for me as well of being like, damn, like there's more to physical fitness than just aesthetics and wanting to look good. Like there's so much more behind it. And I met so many people who were in different walks of life from early stages, but a lot of people who were in their 50s, 60s, 70s who really were just looking to feel good, feel energized, wanted to stay working in their jobs. Like, so I got a very different perspective about what health and what people value about health is from that education early on in my career. So it's one of the most life-changing things that happened to me.
It was. It bleeds into so many aspects of my life now, but like literally that assessment, you showing me that I had that weak spot, and then me then going out and looking for information on this, because up to that point, what I thought was, and I believe many people think this way, what I thought was I was athletic my whole life, right? 3-sport athlete, all that fun shit. My thought was that you played the genetic hand that you were dealt. And so if your hamstrings were tight or your quads were, well, that's just your genetic. Like, I didn't know there was a way out of that stuff, and that those were things that you could actually do something about, and you didn't have to just be, I don't want to say a victim, but like you didn't have to like be a prisoner of your genetics,
sure.
Right? Like you may be predisposed to be not very bendy, but you can still get yourself pretty mobile if you put the time in and you do the work. And I didn't know that there was work for that kind of stuff. I thought just, those people are just bendy. I'm just not one of those people. Right. And then when that assessment put me on a path of reading and learning and understanding and changing and doing all these different things. And I won't say that at this point I'm as bendy as I was maybe 3 years ago. I'm simply just not doing the work right now in that aspect of my life. But so, yeah, no, it really did. When I say it had a profound effect on me, I mean, I really mean that. That assessment really put me on a path of discovering and uncovering a lot of things I just didn't know about the human body.
I think I've talked about this a lot, is like, I think the physical body is such a conduit to all different aspects of strength, because it's very objective. Like you can, mindset and like mentally strong, like is a very theoretical type world to be in. Like it's very hard to sometimes calculate exactly what that means, but getting stronger, getting more mobile, it's a very easy way to see progress. So it's a good kind of beginning point that can flow downstream into a lot of other stuff. Yeah. But it's interesting. Like one of my pet peeves that people always say is like, oh, it is what it is. It's like, and it is, sometimes we just get into that mental state of thinking, well, this is just how I am. I'm not mobile, or I'm not strong. I'm a lengthy guy, and like I'm a wiry guy.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be big and strong, or I'm just not that smart to build a business like this, or I'm just not like the father type or something like whatever it is. Like people we get into these mindsets of where we are, not recognizing where we can be by just building some certain skills.
I was the same way too. Like I definitely told myself a story because I was, high school was like $135, and then in college I was like $155. And like when I met you, I was like $165. And I told myself the story that was I'm just going to be like $165 my whole life and blah, blah, blah. And then I learned that there's things that you can actually do if you would like to put on mass, and it doesn't have to be steroids. Like there's actually just healthy ways. So like one of the things I did, I went from 165 to 205 in not a long period of time. But all I did was I stopped running 30 to 50 miles a week, and I started eating and lifting heavy. And next thing you know, I'm 205 pounds. Now, there was some fat in there. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I was Jack Tex to get 205. Yeah. I always laugh about that time in my life where I was like, I started bulking, right? And my bulking consisted of a lot of cookie dough. And then I would laugh because then I was like, I think I overbulked, because then all of a sudden I had like, I was at like 205. I think at my heaviest I got to like 215.
Yeah, there's a yin and yang to everything.
Yeah. And I was like 215, but I had like 50 pounds of fat on me. Like when I did my body fat percentage and did the whole testing, all that, and I did the math, I'm like, oh, so what that means is I'm 215 pounds, but 50 of those pounds is fat. Like it's not muscle. It's not healthy stuff that I'm holding on to right now. It's like, and then I started back on the, I got to slim it down. And I'm a little squishy right now, but I'll be back down to 175 kind of midsummer here as I'm training for some races and stuff. But
well, it's how it goes, especially with a lot of the people I work with I call it like the advanced beginner stage, which I think we're all kind of in. And specifically in the fitness world, so much of the campaigns and the marketing slogans is always towards like the beginner, the somebody brand new. And that's why most people succeed very early on, because when you're a beginner at something, anything that you do
is improvement,
right? If you go from 0 days working out to 1, you just did 100% increase right there.
That's a good point.
Right? So like a lot of times at the beginning stages, like you can lose weight and get stronger and get more energy and feel more clear in your head. Like all these things come at one time. But once you get into the stage where you're pretty consistent and you're maybe a year in, or 18 months in or so, a lot of those things, like you can't get everything all at once anymore. Sometimes you need to, if you want to go into a bulk, you can increase some muscle, but you are going to probably put on a little bit of fat. It's just how it goes. Or vice versa. Like if you want to really lean down and get as shredded as possible, you're going to probably drop a little bit of muscle mass at the same time. Like unless you're a genetic freak or you're adding some extracurriculars into your veins.
Not recommended.
Exactly. It's just kind of how part of the process is. And I'm fascinated by this demographic of people because it's where I think most people are, and it's not talked about enough, is because most people succeed for 6 months to a year, but 95% of those people fall off 1 to 3 years afterwards. And that's where, because I think the feeling of something new is different. It's not new anymore. So it's very different type of feeling. You're going into doing your workout or going into your mental practices, whatever it is. Like the initial excitement of the honeymoon phase is over. And a lot of people think like something's wrong then because they don't feel the same way. I use an analogy of like going on an airplane, right? When you're first like sitting there and you're on the runway, you feel the jets turn on, and you feel that acceleration. You go back in your seat and you're like, oh shit, we're taking off. And then you get up off the ground and you feel yourself going up. But once you get to cruising altitude, it kind of feels like nothing's going on. It doesn't even feel like you're moving, right? But you're still going as fast. You're actually going faster than you were on the ground. But it's a very different feeling. Imagine if we thought the same way on an airplane. Everybody's banging on the cockpit door of the pilot, be like, hey, something's wrong. We don't feel like we're moving anymore. What's going on? It's like, no, it's like you're still going, you're still making progress, but it's going to feel a little bit different.
It's interesting. You left out on the plane part about like nausea and I hate flying.
I'm not a great flyer either.
It's terrible.
That's why I need the aisle seat, because I just want to get up and down.
Oh my God.
I can't be in towards the window. So,
I don't like anything about the experience, but what are you going to do? My wife's actually on a plane right now, everyone. If Kristen, if you're listening, we miss you. Hurry home. So I think we kind of caught up to where we are a little bit, right? I know you've got a couple podcasts that you do, which is actually what led us here today, because you recently interviewed Karen Carey, our mutual friend. She posted it to her Facebook profile. So this is how it all kind of went down. I was like, look at that. I'm like, Mike's got a podcast. No shit. And she's actually, it's funny because she's coming on this podcast next week.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, next Tuesday she'll be here.
Karen's amazing. Yeah,
she is
super insightful.
Amazing. Yeah. So tell me, we kind of ran through a little bit. So you were working at Evolutions. There's a question I have on that specifically. So obviously coming out of the HealthPlex facility, which was, if you don't know it, it's a large facility in Clifton Park. There's everything you could think of from a fitness standpoint, right? There's free weights, there's group exercising classes, there's all the things, right? But then going to Evolutions, and you were highly focused on just kettlebells. And I've read some of your posts and watched some of your videos and seen some of the things that you've posted over the years as far as that shift into kettlebell workouts and moving away from heavy lifting and kind of some of the traditional, you got to go and do 4 sets of 10 bench press in order to have, like all that kind of stuff. Like I definitely, I think that a lot of that resonated with me as far as leaving the traditional, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the traditional, like modus operandi for working out. Right. So, what led you into that? Like, how did you move into that kettlebell scenario and really leave the normal traditional gym behind, so to speak?
So it happened. So bringing it all the way back.
Yeah.
So this was about 2009. I began my career as a personal trainer in 2008.
Okay.
And through the world of FMS, so Gray Cook and Lee Burton built this program, and it's, we talked about that with movement assessment, really like understanding the body. Well, they also had a connection with Pavel Tatsulin, who is really the godfather of kettlebells and really popularized it here. And he built the program, the RKC, the Russian Kettlebell Challenge. And his whole system really comes from like the Soviet aspect of weightlifting. He's like a historian of strength. So really a like scientist / like artist of it. And I started following a lot of his work that he was doing with the RKC, because kettlebells and FMS kind of blended together in this program.
And for everybody listening, FMS stands for Functional
Movement Systems.
Systems, okay.
Yeah. And then the RKC, which now in 2012, Pavel bridged off of that as company Strong First, which I'm still affiliated with and I'm an elite instructor with. So I started looking at more of the work with things like movements like the Turkish get-up, like the kettlebell swing and stuff like that. And there's a couple things. One, it's the modality of utilizing the training. And the way that I describe this, Mike, is there's a difference between training with kettlebells and kettlebell training.
Okay.
So if you look at the latter, the kettlebell's a tool, but when we put the tool inside of a system, so that's where getting the whole body really working as one unit together. And a lot of traditional ways of like having an arm day or a leg day or a shoulder day and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, there's some benefit and utility to that. But if you're talking about more of the functional aspect of strength, where getting your strength conditioning done, not only effectively, but also efficiently, and then also having the energy and really utilizing that to do other aspects of your day. That was really appealing to me. And then, learning, just mastering a few movements. Like, we don't do a lot of different things in the School of Strength. Where like the first certification, you learn 6 movements. So it's not a lot. But going back into, like, I was a baseball player growing up, and I was always fascinated by like the details of a baseball swing. Like if my elbow was up a little bit here, if I shifted my weight a little bit here, like the difference between hitting a home run and a pop fly is like, minuscule. So I was always fascinated by technique and like just adjusting and tweaking things. And I kind of found that same like mentality with kettlebell training. So then in 2009, Brett Jones, who is my coach and one of my best friends, who's this director of education with Strong First, came to Healthplex and did a FMS level 2 workshop.
Okay.
So he was in Clifton Park, and it was a small workshop. There was like 15 of us. He was a master instructor of the RKC system with Pavel. And I was kind of chirping his ear throughout the weekend on like kettlebells. I was kind of fascinated by it. And he was answering my questions gracefully. And then one morning before we got started, I went in early, and he was working with another guy there who was an RKC instructor, just playing around with stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of went up and like, hey, like, can you take a look at my kettlebell swing? And like, you know, see what I thought I was going to like show off for, you know, the big guy here. And he proceeded to break down my kettlebell technique and had me gasping for air in like 7 minutes with a 30-pound kettlebell.
Just doing a swing.
Just breaking down the technique of my swing, of getting my hips back, of taking my shoes off. So I was rooting down into the ground, like getting my force production in there. And I realized, I'm like, oh, like there's a whole nother avenue of education inside this. So that's when I signed up for the RKC program and went to the certification. I got to learn, you know, from the horse's mouth, from Pavel, and met some of those amazing instructors. And from there, it was just just the system of learning the kettlebell. Like, it was something that I felt like I could go into like a mastery of. Mm-hmm. Like it went deeper than just wanting to look good or wanting to feel good. Like, this was almost like another sport that I was learning how to really get good at. And that just kind of kept, you know, consistently going on. And I always had that in my mind. And we did some of that in Clifton Park at Healthplex, but then bringing it to 2018, and I was, looking to leave that space. I had a good friend that we just met through Facebook who was from Santa Monica that opened up a small kettlebell studio in Saratoga Springs called Evolution. His name's Chris Abbott. And I was trying to figure out like my next move of where I was going to. And I knew he had a space up in Saratoga. I was like, let me just go see what this guy's doing. It was a small 1,000 square foot space, and was just kind of chopping it up about different things. And I asked him like, hey, do you want to partner up? Do you need some help in here? And then we just built this system. And then Lindsay came on, and we had this team, and we built a phenomenal system of strength with people. And we had like 150 members, when we were expanding out. And then things changed quite a bit in March of 2020 for everybody. And so we actually had an agreement to triple our space and go into a bigger space, and sign that a week before the COVID lockdown happened. Oh,
God, man.
Yeah. So this is an interesting time, because this shifted me a lot of how I approach coaching, and really my philosophy about strength now is, we saw this early on. Chris was very forward thinking this. He's like, something might happen here. Something unprecedented might happen where we're like shut down. Oh, we need to do something. Yeah. So we brought our whole team in like the weekend before, and we filmed all of our classes. And so as soon as everything that we did in the studio, we put online. So as soon as we were locked down, we just popped that online program up, and people could still do their workouts and training.
He's
and
like
everything
Nostradamus, man.
Like, we're like, okay, this is going on really well. So
that's crazy.
I was in such a good zone at that time, because we were doing so well, that I was like very optimistic. Like, okay, we'll be shut down for, a couple weeks or, whatever, and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of a little mini vacation. And, sure enough, we were shut down for 9 months. I mean, so things changed a lot during that time.
I know. I remember that. I remember first of all thinking, no way they're doing that in this country. Yeah. They're shutting us down. And then the second thing was like, all right, well, it's only going to be for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And then it just kept going.
Yeah.
So during that time, like, we were doing live classes, like people were coming. So people were still following along. And then slowly but surely, people started to fall off classes, kind of falling into low mood and stuff like that. And we were just trying to stay in touch with everybody, like calling them up, like, and saying, hey, how's your spirits? Like, you still getting in your workouts? Just trying to keep everybody flowing. Yeah. And an answer I got from quite a few people was really interesting to me. And they said, I feel like I don't know what to do if you're not there. Kind of saying that when they were in the studio and we were telling them exactly what to do, what weight to use, how many reps to do, like we were kind of taking all the guesswork out of it, they were doing fine. But once we were removed out of the equation as coaches, a lot of people felt like they didn't know what to do. So kind of unconsciously, as we were trying to help people, we were also kind of enabling them at the same time.
Yeah.
And that kind of really just got me into thinking like, okay, what is this? What's happening? Because I had other friends who were personal trainers that I was talking to throughout this time that were experiencing that same thing with a lot of their clients. And I realized like, oh, as much as we're like giving a guidebook of how to do this, if something happens where people have to be autonomous with their own health, they feel like they have no idea what the hell to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's when I started looking at the psychology of success and the mental side of training as much as possible. And some of the stats I said at the beginning of this, like 95% of people fall off. It started to like stagger my mind. I'm like, oh my God, like what is coaching really about? And like the fitness world and stuff, like there's more information and programs and stuff like that out there than ever has before. There's 250,000 box gyms in the US. There's over 750,000 personal trainers. So there's more availability than ever. But that number of people actually succeeding and feeling really good in their health has not changed. So I'm like, something's missing.
Crazy.
Something's missing that's going on here. So that's what I've been trying to really, look at and figure out how to approach that in a different way. And that's when I started my own business 3 years ago after, a bunch of different changes. The approach that I make with clients now is really connecting physical fitness and why they value that to the other things that they value in life on a mental side, on an emotional side, on a spiritual side. And because I found that if you don't align those things with a bigger reason why, it's just too easy to fall off.
To not do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting to say that I have a few yoga certifications and, but I have like zero practice at this point. And every once in a while I'm like, all right, I'm going to reinvigorate my yoga. Now, listen, I'll go out and run 10 miles right now. Don't even need to motivate me. I will go do it. I love it. Right. Or I'll go swing kettlebells or I'll go whatever. The farm, there's always work to do. Right. So I'm not afraid of the work, and I don't believe it's a discipline thing, but there's just something about like yoga for me right now that like I sit down to do a practice. I'll do a couple sun salutations. I'm like, man, I don't want anything to do with this right now. And I walk away from it. It's like one of the few things in my life right now that I would just walk away from. And, but if you put me into a yoga class,
sure,
I'm going to do the class. I'm not getting up in the middle of the class and leaving. You know what I mean? So it's a weird thing, like to your point, right? Of when you're not in, and it was one of the things I did always really enjoy about CrossFit was that only really hard part was just making sure I got my ass to the gym.
Right.
And then I was there. I certainly wasn't going to leave, and they just told me what to do, and I just went and did it. Right?
Sure.
It was easy from that standpoint. But
and I think there's so much value to that. Like, I think it's so great to have that availability of going into a class, and there's a community feel and that aspect to it.
The commiseration.
100%. And I think that's huge. And, a lot of people, you forge friendships with people that you're kind of going through those sweaty times with and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, okay, like, break glass in case of emergency. Right. If things happen like this, like, are you reliant on external situations in order to get what you need to done?
Yeah.
And oftentimes if that's the only thing in there, exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, like it's good to have a backup plan. Like we call it in my community, scouting the defense. It's like we're so focused often on the offensive game plans of what we do. It's our nutrition program or our training program or whatever practices that we're implementing. If you think of it, those are all things that where you have the ball and you're trying to go down and score a touchdown. But life plays this beautiful defense on us that tries to prevent us often from doing the perfect things all the time. It could be scheduling obligations. It could be our own mental, self-limiting beliefs that, come in that are unconscious. Whatever it is, if you don't have a plan for that, then that becomes a reaction situation versus a proactive situation. And so it's like some of these things, hopefully it never happens, but just in case it does, still having a plan so you can see it ahead of time, it's often just a small little shift there that just keeps you on the path of progress rather than really falling back.
It's interesting. Listening to an audiobook. You don't read them. The Perfect Day? The Perfect Morning? Shit. I can't remember the name of the book. It was okay. It wasn't a great book, but it wasn't bad. I mean, a lot of the stuff at this point, I've been introduced to those topics. Sure. So you know how that goes. Like when you've been a self-improvement junkie and, person or what
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You come across the same things all over. Everybody's saying the same stuff. But one of the things it was talking about was, to your point though, was talking about being ready, like getting rid of the thing that's going to throw you off track before it happens, being proactive about it. Right. So like my morning routine right now, I get up at 4:00 in the morning. I come downstairs. I start the coffee maker. I take the dog, but one of the things I need to do is get my ass in that cold plunge. One of the things I need to do is work out. I got to do my breath work. I got to do, I have different things I do in the morning. And so I have to eliminate the things that keep me from doing them. So like one of them was, if I forgot to grab like my socks before I went out to the barn or whatever it was. And so then it was like, all right, so the night before I got to get my clothes ready to get those socks. The way I have that, because otherwise I wouldn't go back up and get them because I didn't want to, disturb anyone sleeping at 4:30 in the morning. So, but to your point, that's that knowing what's going to throw you off track, what's going to derail what you're trying to accomplish, and then getting rid of it before it's an actual problem, right? Creating strategy to prevent it rather than reacting to the situation and then being like, oh shit, I'm just not going to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because everything, we always talk about time, right? We always think, do I have time and stuff like that. What we really mean is energy. And, and energy is a really interesting thing, I think, because if you talk about that, like laying your clothes out and your socks out in the evening time beforehand, right? It doesn't seem like a lot, but you just like took extra energy from what you would need tomorrow and you moved it forward. So now you can just wake up to execute. So that's what I try and talk about a lot with clients is like the more you can see these things ahead of time, like if you can be more proactive to it, even if it's a small little thing, you're actually saving energy. And I think everybody's probably experienced this before. If you just go to your day and you're just kind of ho-hum, just kind of going with the flow, by 3:00 or 4:00, you might feel that like complete just drop, like that energy, and you don't want to do anything else, right? You're probably suffering in some ways from decision fatigue. It's like every little thing that you like do, every little thing, whether you, wear your blue coat versus your black coat. If you just ruminate on that for just an extra second, that's actual energy that you are expending. You know, think of it like as soon as you wake up, the sundial turns over of energy that you have for the day. The more you can...
What do they call that? Is it not choice fatigue?
Decision fatigue? Yes, decision fatigue. Yeah. And this happens all the time. And it's the small little things that you do. So it's like a case in point, like laying out your clothes in the evening time or so, like just so they're there. Just that extra time of like, if you didn't do that, of going to your closet and figuring out what it is, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that just extra piece could be just enough to just say, screw it, I'm not doing that today.
But that would be a thing. Like if it was a morning where, let's say I wasn't cold plunging and I was getting up and I was just going to go outside and walk around the oval for 45 minutes. If I didn't have those things laid out already, and then I got up and legitimately, and I don't know, this is obviously a problem for me, but legitimately the first thing I'm thinking about when I wake up at 4 a.m. is I just want to come downstairs and get the coffee maker going.
100%.
That's I don't care about anything else on the planet. The fucking house could be burning down, right? And I'm like, just give me the coffee maker and then everything else will come into play. And so like in those situations, if I didn't have my clothes to go outside in that scenario, then like I wouldn't do it.
You won't do it?
No, I won't do it. I'll do something else.
Yeah. I talk about this with people who like taking an example of like wanting to work out in the morning, right? If like you want to switch your habits and like, I'm going to get this in beforehand, which I think is a great thing. Like if you can get your high yielding tasks done, the things that you're trying to make a change on in your life as early in the day as possible, that is great. But I've seen a lot of people like talking about the book, The Perfect Day. I have a thing I always talk about with my clients that say, everybody's perfect tomorrow.
Right.
And what I mean by that is like you can say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to wake up
I'm going to do all that
and
shit.
I'm going to get it. And like you're like projecting like you're going to wake up and just feel like $1 million and you're going to get up and you're going to have the best workout ever and you're going to hit every green light on the way to work and nobody's going to say anything bad about you or anything. And you're just going to feel great all day. Right.
Good luck with that.
What's the first thing that usually happens in the morning? You wake up and you're tired.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is off. So if you think that it's like this perfect projection that you're going to do, all of a sudden, as soon as you wake up and you're tired, well, that's a pattern interrupt. You thought you were going to wake up and feel great. Now you think something's wrong and it's very easy to hit the snooze or turn it off. So I told people, I'm like, okay, like if you're going to make this change, okay, tomorrow morning you wake up, you're probably going to be tired. What are you going to say to yourself, or what are you going to do when you know that you're going to feel that way to move forward? So I've had clients like write a Post-it note on their nightstand and say,
that's good.
hey, I know you're tired, but you've got goals. Like, get up. Like, just one little pattern interrupt just to move you into the direction.
That's what I should do for my cold plunges, put a big thing on it. Because sometimes, man, I get out, I just don't want to do it. And
100%.
sometimes I don't do it.
Yeah.
And I should put a big, but I have to let the dogs out.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're going to whine and growl and bark and wake the house up. And so I have to go out there. So I should put up a big note. Like,
that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another thing with that, which I think is great, is, it's 3 minutes that you're doing in the cold plunge, right?
Yeah.
So if you say like, okay, in 5 minutes, I'm going to be drinking my hot cup of coffee in here. And I can either 1, feel really good that I just did this, or 2, feel really, bad because I wussed out and I didn't do it today. So this was an example I had with, this stuck with me a while ago, and I've thought about it a lot, is I remember during that time of, during the pandemic, and I was talking with one of our clients and just couldn't kind of get it out of his own way. And it was, he was trying, but kind of just, everything was an excuse and stuff like that. And he just kept saying like, well, I can't wait till you guys are back open. I just can't wait till you guys are back open. And I finally said to him like, look, dude, I don't know when we're going to reopen. Yeah. Like, it's like going a lot longer than anybody thought. But I said, I'm like, but there is going to be a time where we are going to reopen our doors, and you're going to walk in and you're going to feel one of 2 ways. Either 1, you're going to be super pumped that you still did some stuff during this time, even if it wasn't the perfect situation or exactly what you wanted, but you still made a really good effort to keep yourself in great shape. And that workout back, you're going to feel really proud and happy that you did something throughout that time. Or 2, that's going to be a really rough workout because you didn't do anything for a long time. And you're going to say, I wish I did something during this time.
That's the worst.
But either way, you're going to be faced with that thought. So there is a future casting kind of tactic to this, where if like you think at the end of today, like if you wake up in the morning time and you think, okay, tonight I'm going to, God willing, I'm going to rest my head down on my pillow and go to sleep. How do I want to feel about the day that I just had? Do I want to feel proud and really pumped up that I did what I said I was going to do? Or am I going to feel kind of let down that I let some things slide from there? Because either way, I'm going to be in that scenario later today. So I think that's a really good kind of shift of doing that. That's a good journaling practice that I've worked with people on, of like saying, like thinking of your later day, like how do I feel at the end of this day? And then, because all you have to do then is reverse engineer the day and just follow your steps.
Beginning with the end in mind.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your coaching and your podcast, but I don't want to leave the fitness stuff yet, because selfishly I have a question that pertains to me. Sorry, everyone.
That's how podcasts go.
I know. It's all about me, guys. So we were talking about, and I'll tell you why I'm going to ask this question if I stop interrupting myself. So maybe 6 months ago, I sold all my Olympic weights, my plates, my bars, my squat racks, all the stuff, got rid of it all. Because I told myself that it was time for me to switch my training methods, and doing Olympic lifts and trying to lift heavier and all those things was just not like, as an almost 50-year-old man, it was time for me to say goodbye to that type of training and to move into more of a, I don't want to say a softer way of training, because that's not the right word, but to be more functional, to be less about strength and size and and all that stuff, and to really start looking at longevity, which I feel like one of your podcasts I just listened to, you might have been talking about this, might have been the endurance one.
Probably with Brad Kearns, yeah.
Was that the most recent one?
Yeah, Brad's a phenomenal guy. Just wrote a book with Mark Sisson called Born to Walk.
Yeah. So as you walked in, you saw my kettlebells and all those things on the floor. But what you said a little bit ago, gave me a reason for pause though, because you said, "Are you kettlebell training, or are you training with kettlebells?" And so you said that, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm training with kettlebells is what I'm doing," because I'm still. I mean, my whole life I've been weight training for the most part, and so getting out of that modality is kind of a tough thing for me. So now I'm doing a lot of the same movements, but I'm doing them with kettlebells. So it made me think all of a sudden, like, well, I really haven't changed the way that I'm training, have I? So I'm curious about why, because now that you only train with kettlebells, correct?
Predominantly, yeah.
Or let me rephrase that. You're only doing kettlebell training.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's my personal focus just for my own personal journey. I mean, but I'm a barbell certified and bodyweight certified, instructor too. So I've learned those skills of strength as well. There's great modalities to it. I mean, so if somebody says like, why a kettlebell over another modality? What I would say is there is some ergonomics and some the way that the kettlebell is designed that is very good for the architecture of your body. Okay, so because it's an offset weight, specifically for something like in the clean position or the overhead position, it sits a lot better into your natural architecture of the shoulder. It's also a lot more versatile for things like hip hinges versus a barbell. You kind of have to. You have to move your body around the barbell, right? The barbell is kind of in charge. And there's a little bit more of a learning curve to lifting, heavy with that. Where the kettlebells, it's a really good alternative to that because you can work the muscles without killing them. So especially things like ballistic movements, which are swings or snatches, which is, if you ever see any videos, it's like where the bell can go like through your legs. You snap up and either you're finishing in a swing position, which is about chest height, or you're finishing overhead. There's some technique involved in that. But the design of that, as far as getting your whole body working together, is you can use a relatively light weight and get a lot of the power-based work that you need. So there's a difference between training strength and training power. And specifically, if we're talking about longevity, power training is what a lot of people are missing more than strength. Hypertrophy is a huge thing, like keep your muscle size up and like doing stuff there. But as far as your fast twitch muscle fibers, right? The only way to really keep your fast twitch muscle fibers healthy and strong is either to train them heavy or train them fast. And
so doing those explosive movements.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, there's, I think a great benefit to getting very strong in like a deadlift or a barbell squat and stuff like that. There's good stuff, but there is also risk versus reward.
There's a trade-off, and that was what I noticed was when I was doing the training that I've been doing for most of my life. Bench press, I was getting heavy wrist pain. On my back squats, I literally I couldn't do an Olympic lift anymore without feeling some sort of injury that was getting ready to come on. And I'm sure part of that was my mobility. So I'm putting myself under load in bad position because mobility sucks these days again, right? Not as bad as it was when I first met you, but still not much better. And I just, every time I would work out, I was like hurting myself. And I'm like, I know that as a runner, right? We always talk about like, well, you're always training injured in some way, shape or form, right? Like that's just as a endurance person, that's like the story you tell yourself. You're always hurt. Something's always hurt, right? And I'm just going to train through it. But it was just like everything. It was like every movement, man. And I couldn't do snatches anymore, not barbell snatches, because my thoracic spine mobility has gone to shit. My shoulder mobility has gone to shit. My hip mobility is probably not that great. My ankle mobility is not that great either. So like I just couldn't get into a good position without hurting my freaking shoulders. So it was just, anyway, long story short, this is actually, I invited you on this podcast to get free coaching.
100%. I totally get it. Yeah. I know exactly where you're going.
but it's just, so I was just curious to understand why you would prefer kettlebells over barbells or dumbbells or that kind of training. Not that you always do, but I know that in your personal training, from what I've gathered, stalking you on Facebook, is that you're mainly kettlebells at this point.
So anything that I think is really valuable is it's principle based and it's also very simplistic. So what I love about kettlebells and really like the system of strength that I learned is that you don't need to remember a million different things or a million different movements. If you master a few different movements and get really good at them, you're really getting everything done from there. Now, there's always details that matter. Like if you want to get in very specific goals of stuff like that, yeah, we're going to add in some other stuff that you're working in. But what I love about specifically things like ballistics, like kettlebell swings or kettlebell snatches, is that you can train it in so many different ways. You can go very light and really focus on power and speed. You can also increase that weight. And also what I found is, one is you can have it at your home. Like you don't need a lot of different equipment in order to get everything done. So like where I train, like most of my clients, they're virtual. They're training from home because of their lifestyle. Like they have busy lives, either they're in their families, or I train a lot of people who are business owners that their time is not theirs. So they really need to get as efficient and effective as possible in their time. And by just connecting a few different movements of lower body, core, upper body, like a clean press squat type, thing, like iron cardio based programs, stuff like that. In 20 minutes, you can get every part of your body working at one time, as well as your conditioning at the same time as well.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you find that with the style of training that you're doing that you need shorter workouts?
Yeah. So when I started my my own business from scratch like 3.5 years ago, I was in a state of, you're starting from scratch again, you got a lot of things that you're trying to do mentally, like just time wise and stuff like that. So I remember talking with my coach and I was like, I don't have the mental capacity right now to follow a very set, like strict program of like doing it. I'm just not going to do it. And so that's when we started implementing some more like intuitive type training of stuff where I was training every day for sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes. If I had a little bit more time, I would do a half hour, and kind of like learning just what is my body really feeling like right now? Like, how's my upper body feeling? Okay, I was going into presses. Okay, I want to do more lower body. All right, I'm going to work a little bit more on squats. So it's kind of like it's a chaos inside some order. And I think that's where I try and get a lot of people to. It's like, if you learn the rules of the game, then you can play inside the rules a lot more. So I kind of think of it like, if you're playing basketball, right? Like the first thing you do, like learn, okay, these are the out of bounds lines. That's a 10-foot hoop. This is the ball. You need to dribble it. You need to know how to get the ball into the hoop and like all those different things. And you learn the fundamentals and you get really good at that. And then you get to like LeBron James level and you can just like play and create and figure out every different way, but you're still playing within the same rules and the same parameters. And I think if you get to that point, it's like, it's very freeing. And then it's also, you don't have to just follow just a blind, just structure based program. Like, it's like, you don't have to just do 3 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 10. Like, you can play around with different movements. So kind of what we talk about in Strong First is, we enter our like training day as a practice. The workout is the byproduct. So you're really practicing doing movements really well. So like feeling your body work together. How's my mobility feel today? Oh, I'm going to work on that a little bit more. So you're kind of fine tuning and working on your practice and your craft. And as a byproduct, you're getting really strong and you're getting really mobile and you're getting really conditioned.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the coaching.
Okay.
So obviously you're doing personal coaching from a fitness coaching, let's call it that, not personal coaching. But you're also doing but you've also branched or added, or how do you look as far as like you're doing success mindset coaching? Like, what, help me understand that.
Yeah. So I'll break it down into, I focus, we call it the 4 pillars of mastery. Okay. So it's recovery, discovery, creation, and then mastery. Okay. So let me just talk about those first two, because that's where I think most of those are. Is often when we jump into a new program, if we want to get in better shape or better health or better mindset, whatever it is often we go right to that second pillar, discovery, right? It's, what do I need to add into my life? It's add a new training program, add a new kettlebell workout, add a new nutrition plan, whatever it is. It's, we're adding more stuff. But if we don't also look at what are the things that are holding us back, like why haven't we succeeded at this before? What have you tried in the past before? Where did you fall into this pattern of where you struggled and you went back to old habits or so. That's the recovery phase. So I think those first two phases work simultaneously together. Okay. We're very easy at always thinking about what we need to add into our life, right? Oh, I need to lose. I need to do keto or whatever it is, like some modality that is missing from my life that I need to add to. But more often the things that hold us back are the things that we are unconscious and that they're not serving us anymore. And then we don't do our due diligence of working on eliminating those from our life. So that's really where the mental side comes into place. So I like to think of this as like a thermostat, as if you set your house right now to 70 degrees, right? If it gets too cold, right, the heat's naturally going to kick in and going to bring you back up.
Listen, we're tough.
Yeah.
We got that thing set at 62. I turned it up for you. I just want you to know.
I got you. Yeah. Well, I'm at a badass home right here for that. Yeah. But think of it. You set it to that certain spot. So if it gets too cold, the heat's going to kick up. It's going to get back to status quo, right? So that's where most of us live. If things get really bad or like we start like really hitting a block, we're like, oh, I need to get my shit together. And then we're good at getting us back to like where we were, like get back on that track, right? And then we start to see some momentum going forward. Okay, cool. We're making some good progress, right? But at the same time, if all of a sudden it cranks up to like 90 degrees and you got it set at 62, the air conditioning is going to kick on and it's going to bring you back down. So I think that's what happens with a lot of us as well, is we start seeing some successes that are going on, but we still don't identify with that next person that we're trying to be. We still think of ourselves as our old self. So we naturally will self-sabotage ourselves of bringing us back down from there. So that's where, I'm feeling really good. Okay, I'm going to reward myself, but I'm going to start eating off my plan.
I feel like you just described how I live my whole life, Mike.
And I'm sorry, you're in great company, Mike. So it's how people go. So these are things that I'm really passionate about, because I think this is the breakthrough of where we really get to not just succeeding in the goal that you have, but creating a system of success so that you can repeat it over and over again, long past the first goal that you have when we first speak. And then we get, so once
now
we
you're
get
not working just inside physical fitness with this though, right? Do I understand that correctly?
No, that's the conduit that we use from there. Okay. So we're implementing training programs in there, but simultaneously is if we just keep it to what your physical fitness is, I know I'm doing a disservice to you, because 95% of people fall back into old habits. And this is, I believe, the main reason why we do this. And this is why I got into the mindset performance space and really what mindset coaching actually is. And I educated myself into this and brought it into my practice with people is I want to know more about your life. Like I'm asking you about like, okay, like you want to lose 30 pounds or you want to, you do XYZ or run this. Okay, why? Like, how is life different if you achieve this goal? And oftentimes I'm met with a blank stare from there, because we don't think about the goals that we have on any different level except for the exterior. I want to lose 30 pounds. Oh, well, I want to look better. Okay, why do you want to look better? Okay, all of a sudden we start to get some really crazy answers from there. And then we start to get into self-confidence and self-belief. And then, what our programming was early on in life of how we view ourselves. I always viewed myself as, a small, skinny guy. So I never thought myself that I could be big and strong. So as soon as I got really big, I started to wean myself back because I don't identify with that. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what we get. But I see this in the same with people in relationships and same thing in business. And if we don't connect why we approach our physical health with the other things that we value, of if you get in better shape, how is that going to change your relationship with your spouse? Or how is it going to change your relationship with your business? How is it going to change your relationship with yourself, or how you just, go about in your social life, whatever it is that you value? Because if you don't connect those things, it's so easy to just turn over and just hit the snooze button if it's only about yourself or a vanity metric or stuff like that. But if all of a sudden you realize, like, I want to show up for my kids and my wife in the best possible way, you're probably going to get up and get your ass in that cold plunge a lot easier from there. Yeah. So it always goes back to the cold plunge.
It does, man.
But so how it really changed from what I was doing before is now the people I work with, we're going very deep into all different facets of life. I want to know about, what you're putting in your body with nutrition. I want to know about your sleep habits. I want to know about just your overall movement. I want to know about your training. But I also want to know about what's going well in your life? Like, what are the victories that are going on? Like, what's the stresses that are popping up right now? What are you thinking about, like, at night when you're by yourself? Because if I don't get into that, then it's too easy to just fall into old habits from there. So I think getting into the best shape of your life could be the most rewarding thing ever. And I think it impacts so many other things except you. Like strength is an abundance thing. The stronger you get and the better you do in your health and in your family and your podcast, it doesn't take away anything from me. It actually only, helps me get stronger. The stronger we are as a community, and if everybody's working really good to be the best that they can in all facets of their life, then everything else just thrives.
Yeah.
So,
I'm definitely a rising tide raises all ships kind of guy.
100%. Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
And it's in everything that we do. Like we talk about all the time. I think it's one of the most important concepts, to your point, as a community, that like if everybody is trying to help everybody else in that community, then your community is just going to kick ass.
Yeah.
And if every community did that, like what a world we'd live in.
Yeah.
Right. If everybody's trying to make everybody better. Yeah.
And I think this is one of the struggles or the problems I have with like the self-help personal, development culture, like the overarching message is that we talk about it so much as it's like this solitary, like isolated journey. Like it's this nobody cares, work harder type stuff. And it's like, no, like people care. Like, and I know like,
but work harder.
Yeah. It's like, it's a slogan and I know where it comes from. And I know that's not the point of it, but the story that we tell, the words that we say specifically to ourselves matter, so like the story that we tell ourselves is one of the most powerful things. And the more that you have a strong story about that and that you like what you do matters to other people around you, not just your immediate family, your kids, your family, but when you go into the world and you're doing the best that you can do and you're making strides for that, other people are noticing.
Yeah.
Like it might be from osmosis. It might not be like a direct thing, but people like we're always watching everybody else.
Yeah.
And if you see like, if you're, it's an old cliche, you are, the 5 people that you're closest with, you're an amalgam of those people. It's like we are connected in all different ways. So the more you can connect all different areas of your strength, not just the physical, but how does that affect your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your business life, your family life, how you can connect all those together, then it's like, it's a deeper thing. You realize it's a lot more valuable, to you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You just remind me, you're saying that how things they kind of happen laterally. You probably didn't know Joe Waters. Joe Waters was like a real estate agent in the Glens Falls community for years and years and years. He died, God, it's got to be over 10 years now. But we used to have coffee all the time. And Joe was a bit of a Buddhist. We used to have these conversations about Buddhism. And but he would always talk about how things like didn't really happen directly in most cases. Everything kind of happened sideways. He's like that laterally kind of thing just made me think about that. Yeah. But that's great stuff, man. There's a lot there. Right? Like,
I do my best, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about like most fitness professionals don't take what I would call, it's a holistic approach. It's really looking at everything. And I hate to use the word holistic these days because it gets so like rammed into the ground. It means so many things, but it means
popularized by
it is, but it means to look at things from a whole perspective, not just little bits. So like it's interesting that you may be starting on the fitness side of things, but you're taking into account all these other pieces of the whole and how they're affecting each other, how your success is affecting your fitness and your fitness is affecting your success and how it's affecting your health and your sleep and all the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is just from experience. I mean, I've been doing this for 16 years now, but seeing so many people who are in that middle zone, like that advanced beginner stage, that they've seen some successes, but then hit that plateau.
Yeah.
And if you don't connect these other aspects of strength or your life to why you're doing these things, it's just very easy to fall back and then just always be in this yo-yo cycle.
I'm in that yo-yo for sure. I tell you, I have this nice cycle that I go through right now where some buddies of mine and I, we do some bike races and little, sprint distance triathlons and things, and it's fun and it keeps us moving, and we get to talk trash, and so it's good times. But I know like what I've seen the last few years is I'm really diligent about my fitness from like April to September. Then October, the races are done. I start to fall off a little bit. I don't do shit in November, December. Like in this year, I didn't do anything. I think I worked out like twice. And then January comes in. I'm like, all right, I got to start moving. We got our first races coming up in the spring. Got to get ready for that. And so like right now, I'm in what I would call my lazy phase of fitness. Like I'll run twice a week. They're 5-ish mile runs, maybe 6 miles, maybe 3.5 miles. Doing little kettlebell workouts out, but I'm not like hardcore. But I like to, work under the gun. So I'm going to feel the pressure, and then I'll start working harder and start moving more. But that's my cycle, right? So then I'm just going to be balls to the wall from, whatever until September. And then I'm going to start to back off. It's funny. I didn't really think about it until I was listening to what you're saying. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, and sometimes in that, it's like, if you're intentional with it, great. If you're like, hey, you know what? I'm in more like aggressive maintenance zone in this fight, that's fine. I think there's times
I don't know if it's that intentional. I'm like,
I'm saying like when you make it intentional, so it's like, what I would say to you is like, okay, like next November is going to come, 2025. Think of it now. Okay, I know I'm going to get in the zone right now.
I'm signing up for a race.
Beautiful. I was going to say, like, do something in that. Like, okay, what can I put in a zone like that?
Yeah.
And it's like, because I know I'm going to either mentally kind of check out, or I'm not as like energized or something like that during that time. If you see it ahead of time, then it turns from reactive into proactive.
Yeah. That was one thing I did this year to kind of counteract that was I started looking, I'm like, all right, so I've got this race. Basically I've got a race every month starting in March. And, but then I think there's one, I haven't seen the official date come out yet, but I discovered it last year, was the Moreau has a half marathon trail run, and they did it November 2nd in 2024. So I'm assuming that's going to be in November again. I hope, because that's my November race. But so anyway,
I like it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if all goes to plan here. But
I love it, man. Cool.
I know we hit the hour mark, and I don't want to keep you here all day. But I do want to talk about your podcast real quick.
Sure.
So you've got 2 podcasts. One is Inspire Saratoga.
Yep.
The other one is Strength
Connection.
Strength Connection. Okay. So let's talk about those real quick.
Cool.
I hate to do anything real quick, but let's talk about them.
Sure.
So tell me about Inspire Saratoga. That's a newer one. Right? You 6-7 episodes on that one?
Yes. Well, I'll bring it back into kind of how this all started for me. So, during the COVID time, me and my former partner, Chris, kind of out of like not having much to do, like we're like, hey, we should start a podcast. Like we were kind of talking every day. Like we were always chatting about what we were doing, what your training's going on. And one of our coaches said something like, hey, you guys should start a podcast. And I've always been a fan of podcasts. I listened to a lot because I used to have a commute for a bit when I started working in Saratoga, and I got a lot from long form conversations. And I was always a very curious person. I always liked asking questions, to people and kind of finding what makes them tick and stuff like that. So we started this podcast and started getting people on, kind of interviewing them. And I personally just fell in love with talking to people, and just, we got on a lot of coaches and just hearing about their experiences and their stories and stuff. So when I started my own business and I was trying to figure out, like, what did I want to do? Like, what type of content did I want to put out and stuff like that? And I was like, I really love the podcast. I'm like, can I do it solo, now? And I started the Strength Connection, and my first guest in my first episode is an old friend, Fabio Zonin, who's a master instructor. And 5 minutes into that conversation, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do.
Nice.
Like, it's just, we learn so much from story. And I think getting into specific topics like health or somebody's life, like you can't do that in short sound bites. Like you need to get into some depth of it. And so I just fell in love with, connecting with other people. So I've been doing the Strength Connection for the last few years. But a few months back, maybe like 6 months ago, speaking with a good friend of mine who's like a mentor, my roots are in Saratoga, and I love this space. And my vision is to build a space, here to not just have like a training space, but host events and really go deep into all the things that we've talked about over this past hour, and have my recording studio. So we kind of said, like, why not do a show specifically for the local area.
Yeah.
And like stories around here. And I was like, oh, that's cool. He's like, and anytime I talk to him, it's like, all right, like let it marinate. Like I'll journal on it, like go on and like kind of see what comes up. If it's still with me for a few days, then I know I got something. And the title Inspire Saratoga just kind of came to me, and I wanted to just start chatting with people who were in this area who I think are doing cool things, who are trying to aim up in their lives, not just from the, fitness and health space, but people who are in businesses, people who are, just doing other things. Because what I found is that, with story, as I said, we learn from hearing stories, and I mean, that's why, books are so famous. And then we had radio, then we have TV, now we have streaming and Netflix and stuff. We're around stories all the time, and even big, like mainstream podcasts, like everybody's listening to. And the podcast world has boomed so much over the last few years. But I think we often forget that there's some people right in our own hometown or in your own backyard that might be doing something really freaking cool. Yeah. And I wanted to just kind of highlight that more and just, get that kind of resurgence of that American value of know your neighbor and strong community connection and, the power of inspiration. It's like, it's so easy to find negative things all over the place, not realizing that there's some people just like you who are trying to aim up in your community. And I think in the time where it's so easy to isolate yourself, to just highlight other people that are in the community who might be doing things and support local people that are working on stuff. That's why I wanted to do the second show. So now I'm working them both together and just building them up. And it's been like the biggest blessing, to me. Like I get so fired up by just connecting with people and just hearing about what they're doing and the work that they're trying to do. Like I said, because I think it's an abundance resource. Like hearing somebody's story and what they're going through, like you can either resonate with it or know like, hey, this person's doing stuff and this is what they did. Like I think it's just so powerful when we do that. Yeah,
I agree with 1,000%. We had 2 episodes we had Bill Tanzi on, and he connected with me a couple days after we released the show, and which I won't share the story. It's not my story to share, but someone had reached out to him because of the podcast, and it was really cool. They were going through something and reached out to him, and it really does. Yeah, it definitely has an impact, and I think everybody should have a podcast. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, do you know who Mike Glover is?
I think so. I know the name.
He's a special forces guy, was a CIA guy, and then now he's in the the resilient space, right? So he was on this tear a couple years ago about getting rid of short form communication, and I'm behind that 1,000%. It's one of the reasons why I really like podcasts. I listen to a ton of them every day, and I just think that like you really can't get a story across in a meme or in a Facebook post or in a tweet. Like you need long form storytelling, and this is the best, like most accessible format for that, right? Like anybody can have a podcast. I think everybody should. Yeah. Like if you want to run your mouth on Facebook about whatever it is that you run your mouth on Facebook about, then you should have a podcast and run your mouth on your podcast and then put it out there for people. You know what I mean? Like, because it's long form, there's more information there. Like there's less of a chance for someone to misconstrue who you are and what you're saying, what you're about, listening to an hour plus podcast than if they read one tweet or whatever it is about you. Like, I just think there's just so much to be had in long form, real communication, as opposed to.
And it challenges you to really work on your articulation and refinement. That's what I found. It's like, I mean, this has been 270 something episodes into the Strength Connection.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a lot.
How many are you doing? You're doing multiple a week?
So right now we do one a week of the Strength Connection and then one a week of Inspire Saratoga. Okay. Inspire Saratoga, we're doing it a little bit different. We're doing it in seasons. Okay. But the Strength Connection has just been continuous, for the last 3 years of going forward. But for me, it's really been a ability to refine the ideas that I have and try and condense them down into like, what's the most powerful way to speak about this? And you only do that from hearing other people speak about it. And like some people they have a way of phrasing something that you've been trying to figure out. And I think all the big questions that we have about about values, about physical health, about relationships, about career. I mean, these are all the big things that we value. They're deep questions, and they can't just be answered with 5 steps to do this.
Right.
It's like hearing from people who have built something that's really incredible, hearing from the grassroots of like, what are the obstacles that they came through?
Yeah.
I always like to ask people, like, how's your thought process changed over the time that you started versus now? Like, what are the big long levers that maybe you thought were important at the beginning that you don't, think of now? And it's just hearing different people hear their stories of it is so powerful. And you can just gain so much knowledge from just talking to other people or listening to other people. That's why I think this whole, podcast boom has exploded so much, because everybody thought everybody's attention span was so off. It's like, yeah, you know what? I think we can actually think, very deeply about stuff. We just needed a format to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to 3+ hour episodes of Rogan sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's there.
It's been a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I've kept you talking for over an hour. I really appreciate you coming out to the farm.
Yeah, man.
Way better than doing it on Zoom. So
100%. I really appreciate the invite. It's been
absolutely.
great catching up and
talking
shop. So
anything we can do. And if people want to find you on the interweb, where do they find you at?
So a couple things. One is you can go check out the podcast. It's on all listening platforms, as well as our YouTube channel, The Strength Connection. I'm very active in our Facebook group, which is called The Strength Connection. So you can find me, Michael Kurkowski, on Facebook and jump in there. And then on Instagram, Michael_Strength Connection, I think. But I don't know when this is coming out, but on March 5th, which is a Wednesday, is we're actually we're doing a launch party for the start of Inspire Saratoga town in here. So it's going to be a free event. I'm going to be speaking at it about talking about the power of story, of why we started this podcast up. Some of the people that have been on in the first season are going to do some short form interviews. We're going to have entertainment and stuff like that. So if anybody wants to come and check this out, this is a free event right now. So
where are you doing?
Right now, it's we have 2 venues that we're trying to work on right now of getting in. So I'll have that posted on my social media platforms probably within this week of just getting in.
This will be out on the 28th. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So if you want to check that out, then just follow me, and there will be a registration form in there to sign up for the spot, and then just come meet, have a good time, and just hear some good people speak.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Of course, you can always find us on glensfallsbusinessreport.com and saratogabusinessreport.com. They have all the links to Spotify, Apple, Rumble, YouTube, all the places you can listen or watch this show. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome, brother.